Hello everyone, I am Bharadwaj and I'm working with Chainyard development team. Today I will walk you through the demo on how to generate projects using Project Kicker and how to use a generated project. Shravani will be my voice in the demo.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shramni, and today I would be the voice for Bharadwaj, as he has mentioned. I'm working with Chainyard in the development team as well. So let's start with what exactly is Project Kicker. So the Chainyard Project Kicker is an accelerator tool for internal use by Chainyard technical leads to be able to set up a new project very quickly and get a jump start. The tool supports Hyperledger Fabric projects. The current version of the tool generates projects compatible with Hyperledger Fabric 1.4.4. The project was born out of the early work done on the auction application and subsequently on Beam and contingent labor. So we are going to discuss a business use case here. So if you look on the screen, we have three personas or three organizations, that is the contract manufacturer, seller, and the supplier. So the contract manufacturer sends the sales order to the seller, for example, keyboards. The seller would generate a purchase order to the supplier. After the PO is received, the seller will ship the parts to the contract manufacturer. The invoice would be produced by the seller. Once the invoice is received, the seller will bill the contract manufacturer. So this is our business use case. So this is the app model for which we would be generating the project. So we have 7 objects. That is the sales. So the first one is the sales order. So these are the different attributes. And here we have is off chain only, which is marked as false, which means this object would be stored only on the ledger or on chain. And the next is the purchase order, and these are the different attributes. So here we have something called as the privacy policy, which is marked as PII. So we use the GDPR model to convert the PII into hash, which is the personal identifiable information, and that hash value is stored on the ledger, and the original data is stored on the off-chain database. And the next one is the purchase order private. So in this case, we are specifying a collection name to be private collection, which means this object will be stored on the site DB and not on the ledger. And the next one is ASN, that is Advance Ship Notice. And the next one is billing, which will have the sales order number, product ID, quantity, and the bill date. And then we have the invoice, POGR, which is the proof of goods receipt. So this is our app model. And now we would be using this app model to generate our project. So the first step to generate the project using Kickstarter is to type yo. That's how we would start, and then press enter. So this will actually ask you for the project name. And then the chain code folder name. So it's going to generate the Node SDK and the chain code. So you need to specify the path to the file which has the app model. And then if you need UI, you say true, else it's by default false. And then if you need the blockchain explorer, you type true. So this is going to generate the project for us. So now the project has been generated. Now we are going to see the folder structure for this project. So this is the folder structure which has the API role, the blockchain explorer, chain code, fabric helper SDK, the network, and the UI. So let's open the chain code. And then the buy sell invoice. And then let's consider the example of purchase order. So this is how the code would be generated. So the first function would be, how do you record a purchase order? And the next is, how can you query the purchase order based on the purchase order ID? And then the query purchase order list, update the purchase order, and then delete the purchase order. So you can also query the purchase order history. So these are the different functions. So next we'll have a look at the API. So when I open the API folder, I can see the different folders for the controllers, the DAO files, the routers. So in this controllers, we can take a look at the routers first. Maybe the purchase order router. So these are how the routers are defined. So you have post, put, get, and delete. And then the next is the purchase order controller. So it's going to record, update, query purchase order history, purchase order list, and delete purchase order. So we can modify or add validations here based on our requirements. Now the next is services. So when I open the services folder and the purchase order service, so this is where you can write all the validations, and then you can see how the data is, how can you extract the data from the GDPR, and how do you perform different functions. So this is where you would be invoking transactions that would be calling the chain code. So these are the different functions that are written in the service files. And the next is the DAO file, which connects to the database. So all the collections that we would want to store on the database, we can specify them here, and then also we can retrieve them using these functions. So this is the overview of the directory structure and how each directory, what information is contained in each directory. So the next step is we would launch the network and then show how the application actually works. Now we will run the admin actions. In this admin actions, we would be, so once the Fabric network is launched, there is one draft orderer and two peers in each organization generated. So in these admin actions, as you can see, the create channel, join channel, update channel, install chain code, and instantiate chain code takes place. Now we will launch the API and the API roles. So let's start with the API first. So you get into the API folder and run the app.js. And the same thing would be for the API roles as well. You need to get into the API role folder and then run the node app.js. So this is the Swagger for buy sell invoice, which runs on the localhost 3000 API docs. So as you can see, we have users, the sales orders, the endpoints for purchase order private, ASN, billing, invoice, and POGR. And below, you can see how these models are described and what is the request body for each object. Now we have the Swagger for the API roles as well, which runs on the port 3200. The host is again localhost, and this is how the role config looks like. So here you can give access to which user has the role access to which function. This is the overview of how the Swagger looks like. So now let's look at the Blockchain Explorer and what exactly is Blockchain Explorer. What information does the Blockchain Explorer contain? So it is going to ask you for the password, and then it starts installing the node modules. Now the Explorer has been launched on localhost 8080. So we can just open that and see how it looks like. So it's going to ask you for the username and password. We need to just enter those details and click sign in. So this is how the Hyperledger Explorer looks like. So this is the dashboard. You can see you have the number of blocks, the number of transactions, the nodes, and the chain code. You can also see the blocks per hour, blocks per minute, transactions per hour and minute, and these are the block details, which has the channel name, the data hash, and the number of transactions, and even the time. So next we will launch the UI for the buy sell project that we just generated using the Project Kicker. So we need to install the node modules by getting into the UI directory. So after the node modules are launched, that is when we can actually start the application. We need to do npm start to launch the UI. This is the login page or the default UI for the login page generated by the Project Kicker. And this is the registration page. So you can just register the user and then log in and then perform the different actions for that particular user. So this is an overview of how the projects can be generated using Project Kicker, and we've also seen the blockchain explorer, how it looks like, and this is the UI that is generated by the Project Kicker for the project that we just generated, that is the buy sell invoice.